repost on Instagram the other day, and it was basically the 16 or 17-year-old girl sharing this TikTok that was basically describing how anytime she's talking to a guy, she will automatically put him in the friend zone if he starts asking how her day was, and essentially, in her words, becoming too nice to her. So seeing that inspired me to put this video together, which is basically taking a look at what we would call light masculine and dark masculine traits. Even at that young of an age, will have a natural instinct and preference for dark masculine traits over light masculine traits. But before we jump into today's video, a quick word from our sponsors. Does getting stuck in the friend zone keep you up at night? Have you developed an unhealthy emotional and sexual attachment to your video game controllers as a result of the lack of female intimacy in your life? If this sounds like you, buy Alpha Spray today. From the brilliant minds behind Horn and Goat Read, we now introduce Alpha Spray, the world's first body spray that is an active friend zone repellent. Put it on before going into any social setting and just watch your friend zone dry up like a suburban housewife who just found out her husband got laid off. Don't get put in the friend zone again. Alpha Spray. So what do light and dark mean in terms and reference to either masculinity or what it means to be a man, in the situation with what women are attracted to? And light and dark, think about it like this, like almost like a yin and yang circle, where it's a composite of a man's basically personality characteristics, his behaviors, his actions, dispositions. And it's broken down into basically two halves. One would be what would be called the light side, which refers to sort of more socially acceptable, more agreeable, less conflicting, basically behaviors and characteristics. Examples would be having a sense of purpose, being a good leader, being non-reactive in the face of a lot of chaos, being able to be resourceful and a problem solver, being able to negotiate conflict. So all of these sort of qualities we think of in sort of masculine terms, but they again are basically agreeable, and it's really hard to basically argue or have an issue or a problem with any of those. On the other hand, we have what would be referred to as the darker side of masculinity, which is still masculine, but again, it's less agreeable, less socially acceptable. So what is going on, y'all? I hope you're enjoying the video. I need to ask if you can like and comment on the video real quick and subscribe to the channel. It's gonna help me, it's gonna help you. It's gonna increase the quality of the videos and the production and just provide more value for everyone all around. So I appreciate it. Now back to the video. Sort of behaviors would be more like having sexual rigor, being rebellious, independent, being socially dominant or just dominant in general, aggressive, having the capacity for violence. So all of these, in the last one would be taking ownership or possession of things. So sort of the ironic thing, and one of the things that you sort of have to come to grips with as a man, is that although on the surface in our culture, having more light masculine traits or tending toward more light masculine traits is what is socially acceptable, whenever it comes to the dating market, it's the guys who exhibit more of the dark masculine traits, those behaviors that we talked about on the circle, that have the most success in the dating market. And so now let's talk about why would women sort of on an instinctive basis, why would they be more attracted? Why in this situation with the girl that's 16, 17, or 18 on the TikTok video, talk about how she sort of has a distaste or a distaste for anyone who becomes too nice or who favors too much of the light masculine traits. So there's two primary reasons why I think that women have more of a natural instinct toward men that exhibit the dark masculine traits. And the first one is sort of like an evolutionary biology reason. You're just talking about in modern life, we are very, very comfortable. We are, compared to generations past, we are very safe. We have people defending us. We don't really have to go through, so any sort of war training or combat training, as sort of a standard through our education and schooling. And so we have just less threat of like physical violence around at all times. But that's not how it always was, both in terms of direct conflict between men and then also conflict with your environment, right? So because we live in a safer environment, and that is again both with people and then also just our in general environment, we're a little bit more sheltered and protected, is that we don't have the same need for the dark masculine in terms of survival that we did in previous generations. But that doesn't mean from an evolutionary biology perspective that that wouldn't have been a favorable, so those wouldn't have been favorable personality traits, and basically help to ensure survival in previous generations. So you got to think is that, our bodies and our minds, although we probably change somewhat and we do to adapt to our environment, is we are hardwired a lot of the time just primarily for survival, and in a more intense survival conditions, sort of the dark masculine features are going to be more attractive. And so that way, at the sort of the root level of attraction, just sort of visceral attraction, I think women are more attracted to those types of behaviors, in those types of characteristics, because they more associate that with, okay, this guy can provide for me, this guy can protect me against a dangerous environment, even though our environments may not be as dangerous as they were in previous generations. And then the second thing is sort of a taboo in terms of right now, it is like our culture is more favored, leans more towards sort of the light masculine aspects of masculinity. And so whenever that is repressed in our culture, a lot of times women will talk about, oh, well, guys just don't have any backbone, or men aren't being men, all those sort of complaints that you hear. And so what happens is anytime a guy does exhibit some of those more repressed masculine traits, the darker traits that we talked about, is that's going to be more erotic and more of a turn on for women, because it's something that they're naturally drawn to, maybe even more than the light masculine traits. And also, again, it's sort of repressed widely in our culture, so it's something that is sort of rare and they don't get to interact with it much. So now that we know a little bit more about light and dark masculine and maybe the reasons why women are attracted to it, how can we begin to develop those more within ourselves in order to make us more attractive to women who, again, are sort of naturally attracted to those qualities? So the first thing is to just see if you can get involved in some sort of physical combat, right? So some sort of like intensive physical activity, whether it's boxing, jujitsu, something like that, where basically you're not able to tap into some of that primal competitive energy anywhere else. So you need to find sort of an outlet where you can express that and actually access that within yourself. The next thing, again, is just get into the gym, make sure that you are building testosterone through not only your workout exercises, but just consuming protein, consuming the right things. So with your diet, because when you're gonna notice that whenever you have higher levels of testosterone, or men that have higher levels of testosterone, they sort of exhibit those dark masculine traits, a little disagreeableness, things like that, a little bit more naturally than guys who don't have the same levels of testosterone. The next thing is as well as physical conflict, make sure that you can basically get comfortable with some sort of verbal or social conflict. And by that, I mean, just don't be the doormat guy who lets other people walk over him verbally, socially, and tries to avoid conflict at all costs, because life is going to naturally involve some levels of conflict, and you're going to need to develop some level of tolerance for those conflict situations. Another one that's a little bit more fun, and this one is very Christian Grey, is to sort of access that raw primitive sexuality that you have. And whether if you have a partner right now, or the next time you're with someone within sort of context, is like, if you notice yourself have sort of an instinctive desire to do something, but you're a little bit afraid of doing it, try it, right? Or at least communicate that you want to try it and see what happens. By sort of accessing and allowing yourself to express that a little bit more, you're going to get more comfortable with more of that primitive sort of desire. And then the last one is just work on your level of self-worth, right? So through the course of some of the things we've talked about, getting in the gym, being a little more combative, sort of develop boundaries and become okay with social conflict, by building your self-worth, you're going to be naturally a little bit stronger of a presence and a little bit stronger of a personality, which again trends more toward the dark masculine side of the personality spectrum.